Okay. Itamekskanatani. Good morning. It is going on 8 o'clock in the AM on Thursday, my favorite day of the week, the 9th of May, 2024, the first part of the lunar cycle Apistishkit Satos, the flower moon. And I was thinking today I might make another Memoirs video, but rather than it being like one of the linear videos where I pick up from last time. I think I just discussed the early years, the age 1 to 4 or 5 or something, California days when I didn't remember shit. I just have the memories my parents have installed in me. But I am going to pick up from that at some point in that linear style and do my initiation into life in Oregon. But I think before we go there, one of the topics I've been wanting to lay out memories about, so I think it relates to a lot of my decision making and things. Well, at least some of my decision making and such, and my ethics and these kind of things. But yeah, I was thinking I should do a little recording here, something like Ryan and the Church. Ryan and religion, Ryan and the Church, something like this, eh? Yeah. Yeah, when I say that my first life was American, I'm not kidding. Like, even the morals, ethics, principles, and all of that I was raised with, they weren't church values. They were national values. I was taught, by my mom, I was taught to respect the law. You know, our legal systems in most modern nations are really not like a science, but they're constantly evolving, and they're always like the closest reflection in any kind of formal sense of our current values, right? As a group, as a collective. And my mom was very into that. She herself followed the rules and all her life, and was also frustrated all her life with people who didn't follow the rules. And she didn't understand, of course, she's still around. I shouldn't talk like a past tense, but she often expressed frustration in her life with witnessing people who didn't deserve something getting something that they didn't deserve, or people that or she was frustrated when people who were very deserving didn't get what they deserve, and in life in general. And I'm talking the broadest sense, could be in terms of relationships, could be in all kinds of different senses that they don't get what they just could be health-wise. Some people get sick and die, others live a long time, and it doesn't matter what kind of a moral person you are, how that plays out, really. The karma doesn't seem to always play into who gets to spend more time in this life or not, But anyway, my mom really raised me to be considerate of the laws. Now, I'm not saying that I absorbed all of that and took it as my own, because on my dad's side, he also pretty much abided by that kind of ethics, the nationalistic ethics. But, when I asked him at one point for life advice, what he told me was, don't get caught. And so there's definitely a side to my dad that allows the flexibility of not playing by the rules. But don't get caught doing that. If you get caught, you're going to pay a price. That's the way it is. Oh, how far have we gone? 3? Yeah, 3 kilometers. I'll wait for my mileage tracker to stop talking. I wasn't raised with any belief in a God or a higher power or any of that. My mom had beliefs in ghosts. She had spiritual beliefs, but not necessarily a God belief. And I don't know if my parents just didn't ever have that. I mean, my dad was raised straight up Catholic. And I remember his parents having, always had Bible around, and his dad acted like he was, religious and stuff, but his dad was really a party guy right to the end. But in any case, I kind of feel like maybe, and I might be wrong on this, but I kind of feel like my parents, after my dad's brother's death, that was just evidence that there's no God, kind of a thing, for something like that to happen. So I think that helped free them of the religion stuff, at least. I think they were very calculated in how they wanted to raise us. And I think, I think my dad had a big influence on planning my brother and my's development. And God wasn't going to be a part of it. I had no clue at all. Like zero. Nothing. Didn't even know about churches, Jesus stuff, or anything. Up until an introduction. And that introduction, I remember it very well. It didn't come through my parents. Of course, society's going to intervene and introduce me to things that my parents try to keep from me or are not interested in teaching me as anything that's important, right? So I was 5 years old, I think. Might have been 6, I don't know. But we had moved to Oregon. We were living in an apartment complex and waiting for a house to be built. I think my parents bought their house for $35,000 or something crazy. Something insane. Like, Jesus, I wish, I wish we had it like they did, when they were raising my brother and I. A man working, like my dad working as an electrician, just a blue-collar guy, he'd make enough money to support his household and actually have a house and have vehicles. And it's not like my parents were ever wealthy at all, but in fact we'll get into that. But I never felt like economic stress until much later on my own. Anyhow, we were living in this apartment complex, and I had a friend. And my friend he's a black kid. And in his family's front window, there was a photograph. It's actually an artwork, but I saw it as a photograph, and it was gruesome. There was a man, his eyes were rolled back, his blood streaming down off his head. He's got this, thorns and shit. It was a Jesus. It was a Jesus crucifixion image. And of course, I asked my friend, what is this, right? And the way that he explained it to me, how my little 5-year-old mind understood it, and you could see, it had to come from my interpretation of the language he used. How I understood what was going on there was that was a photograph of his father, who had been the king of some kind of country, a lord, and a foreign army had come and killed him, and they had an actual photograph of the murder. And I was so taken aback, like, oh my God, this kid's dad had been king of a country and got murdered by his foreign army. And so next time I pulled into the parking lot in the apartments with my own parents, I was excited to show my dad this photograph and tell him about it. So I brought him to my friend's window and explained what I understood, and my dad just burst out laughing. It's too hilarious. And then, I don't know at that point whether, I think he told me some stuff, like tried to help me understand some things at that point. But, but in general, it was just a non-thing in my life. And the sense that I got from especially my father, whose intellect I admired, was that the notion of a higher power was ridiculous. And, even with a 5-year-old mind, apparently, if you're told to believe in a fairy, you will. But if you're told a fairy doesn't exist, you clearly see that a fairy does not exist, and you can start arguing it out with your fairy believing friends. And that's basically what I got into, as a kid growing up, because everybody around me, everybody went to some church or another. Everybody I grew up with. Well, there were a couple of exceptions. I did find some exceptions, but most of the people, the vast majority of people I grew up with, were their families went to church and were pretty religious and stuff. And so for me, growing up, I got shamed a lot by people. I remember very distinctly in grade school, having Eric Smith, we called him Choppy, and it's his nickname somehow, and we always knew him as Choppy, but he was a cool kid, right? And he heard that I don't believe in God, and my parents don't believe in God, and everybody in the grade school knew my mom, because when I was in grade school, she was still really kind of a stay-at-home mom, and she would volunteer at the school so she could be part of my experience there. And she did lots of things. All the kids knew my mom, Amy, and I remember Choppy just I can't believe Amy doesn't believe in God. Oh my gosh, like it was really trying to shame me, hey? And all my life I had those kind of experiences, but I also, like, because I had my parents behind me, I I wasn't afraid to stand up for myself with that stuff and tell everybody that I thought that their, beliefs in gods was ridiculous, goofy. Now, which wasn't to say that I myself didn't have any sense of spirituality or something, because the age of 12, I had a major Gestalt experience that I'm going to talk about in another video, but I started really cueing into ecology at that point and asking questions about how human beings are supposed to fit into local ecologies. I started getting into indigenous studies at that point, and my spirituality became, I found it in nature. From the time I was 12 till 18, I had a hawk, a red-tailed hawk, who I felt was one of my teachers, and he was always out in this certain area, or she, and I would follow her and be led to learning experiences, and I was given gifts on occasion from this hawk. Some of them fortuitous, like I think I was given at one point I was given the hand of a mole from this hawk, and I knew that just some kind of internal sense, I knew that she was either suggesting that I was blind in some way, or kind of predicting that I would be blind. And I think both are have been pretty accurate. I got some special things from her. I had even after I got married to Mahoney, I had a dream where that hawk came to me and gave me something, and she had already given me, but she gave it purpose, and told me what it was about. And it was a gift for my new daughter coming into that relationship. Taylor, where did Taylor go? Oh, there she is. There you are. Just didn't see you, girl. Come on. The religion thing, like, I had a really good friend who his family was very committed to the Mormon church. They were one of the, I guess, leading families of the church, you might say. He was always at church. It would be problems. Like, I had a little group of friends that, we used to hang out and have it's like a little club. We'd have meetings, breakfast meetings at this one restaurant every week, and then we go and do stuff together. Called ourselves the Salem Berets, but I was kind of the leader of this group, and just a group of nerds. But my friend, who was way Mormon, he'd always have issues, if he'd have conflicts where he had some shit he had to do for church, and so he couldn't come do some stuff with us. And I remember at one point we got in a big fight because I had to put my foot down. It's like, man, you know, like, you gotta choose whether you want to fucking do this shit with us or whether you want to fucking do church, you know. Him, I used to get in large, like, long intellectual debates about the existence of God and this kind of thing, hey? And it was never in, you know, like when we would debate, we would make fun of each other and shit, but it wasn't like in bad spirits or anything like that. We really were trying to help each other grow. I had experiences with other friends that weren't like that, where it's really more like prosecutorial. If you don't participate in this religious thing, then we cannot be, you know, friends, hey? And especially girlfriends, right? So when I was 16, I had a big shift in my life. I had been kind of like in most of my young teen years and stuff. As I hit the puberty age, I was an ugly duckling. I mean, much like today, I had terrible teeth. My teeth were all gangly every which way, and my mom ended up, you know, paying lots of money to put me through braces to straighten out my teeth. Which, if she hadn't, I don't know if I'd have caught many girls. I also had glasses. I had a haircut like Butthead from Beavis and Butthead. I was dressed all the time in just homemade clothes. I was not cool in my early puberty, but when I turned 16, my mom had put some money away, and she said, "Okay, I'm giving you $300 to go buy clothes at the mall, like store-bought clothes." And she got me contact lenses, and I got my braces off, and I got a car, a little Audi Fox. It's 1977 lime green Audi Fox that leaked when it rained, and it rained in Oregon all the time, so I always had water on my floorboards, puddles that would slosh around as I drive. But it was a durable vehicle. I ran it out of gas, ran it out of oil, and the thing, you know, it would die once in a while from that stuff, but it would, if you put more oil and more gas in there, it'd kick right back in, you know. And so with a vehicle and some new looks, I started getting girls right away, you know. Oh, we've gone 4 kilometers now. Yeah, people are very, turns out people are very surface with some of that appearance stuff, and, you know, for good reasons. It goes back to DNAs and strengths and weaknesses, you know, and you know, like, it's when you're dealing with romance, you're in the business of baby making, really, you know, family and baby making and stuff, and so of course you're gonna take genetic flaws into account. And I was pretty obviously flawed, but at 16, you know, with a couple of little tweaks, that was turned around, and right away I started getting dates and stuff. And of course, these girls are coming from families that have that go to church, and so there's occasions when I would be forced. What do you see? What do you see? That's just a log over there. You want to go check it out? Or should we go up this way? Yeah, so these girls' families would basically say, hey, if you want to date, you need to go to our church with us. And so my first actual church-going experiences were of this order, where it's basically like compulsory church going, or you don't get to have the girlfriend. Which made for some, let's just go this way, guys. We were waiting. There's a vehicle pulling in, but I don't want to wait for that vehicle. Yeah, it was just compulsory. You know, you gotta believe as we do if this is gonna work at all, you know. And for the most part, I think I remember. Hey, Kyayo, oh, Taylor just bumped my leg. Once in a while, she knocks me over. She's so strong. Yeah, I'd be compelled to go to these places, and the parents in those cases, I always felt judged by them. Come on, Tay. I always felt really judged by them, and those relationships didn't last long at all. Hey, my longest lasting high school relationship, interestingly, had religious kind of motivations. Well, not religious motivations, more like rebellious motivations against religion as a part of its core. What happened was I was a senior in high school, and there was a new girl in the school that year who was a junior, who was Peruvian native, and cute little girl named Ruth. And my friend went to the same church as her, and it turns out that her parents were not her parents. Hey, she's living with these missionaries who adopted her out of Peru, and so so her parents were highly religious, and I guess her dad had been, or no, he was in Colombia. Sorry, I know I'm getting mixed up with Peru, but she's Colombian native, and her dad got kidnapped by some group, and held hostage for ransom, and her adopted dad, and he actually, like, her adopted mom and dad do have a son and daughter of their own, and then they have Ruth, who was adopted. And when they were taken hostage and stuff, when they got out of being hostages, then he fled Colombia back to the States, to Oregon, and so that was why Ruth was there. But she was rebellious against her highly religious parents, especially around her sexuality, because she was highly sexualized, which I enjoyed. There's a red-tailed hawk right now up ahead of us. You probably heard her. Yeah, there she is. Maybe that's a relative of the one. Oh, there's a pair. There's a pair. They're gonna nest here, no doubt. That's pretty cool. I don't have my camera that lets me get in tight focus, so we don't get to see them up close, but trust me that we have a pair of red-tailed hawks here who are no doubt going to nest in this park. Anyhow, I went to this event at the church with my friend Benji, who is also an adopted kid. He was Cambodian, and he was adopted by some religious Oregon family. Him and his sister both were adopted, and he was struggling with his adopted parents too, and in fact ran away and came to live at my house. And so he lived with us for, I think, a couple of months, and then decided to go back home, But I went to this event. They were going to play volleyball at this church, and I just thought it was just pure volleyball play. So I agreed to go, and Ruth was there, as well as a lot of other, kids our age, 16, 17, and their youth pastor, or whatever the fuck they call those guys. And that guy started interrogating me when we were there, hey? Started, asking me what church I go to and what my beliefs are. When he rooted out that I don't believe in God, then he started actually telling me I'm going to be going to hell and all of this stuff. And I just had a good time mocking him and stuff, to the extent that he kicked me out of the event. He said, you got to go. And when I got kicked out, Ruthie went with me. And after that, we were a couple. And we were a couple for, a couple of months. It was my longest term high school relationship. And it wasn't that long. But most of the while, that relationship was about doing taboo sex stuff. If we had to go to the church for church stuff, we would be sneaking off and doing stuff in the church, and it was just her. There's like the usual preacher's daughter thing, and rebellious preacher's daughter. It's just classic in a sense. But I loved it up until a point. And that point was the evening that Ruthie called me and phoned me and says, I just ate an entire bottle of aspirins. What are you going to do about it? And, basically, she's suiciding, threatening anyway. And she did eat the whole bottle of aspirin. So I told her, well, what I'm going to do is pick you up and take you to the hospital. You got to go to the hospital. And so that's what I did. Brought her to the hospital. They, of course, pumped a lot of charcoal into her stomach and got her vomiting and stuff. She was in the hospital for a couple of days. And but me, when she did that, where my mind is, hey, I'm happy doing the taboo sex play. Like, I love that stuff. But, there was nothing against sex in the national laws and such. My parents never discouraged me in my sexual expression at all. In fact, much more encouraged it. I'll get into stories about that, but I was always very liberal with my sexuality from a very early age. I think from maybe 6-7 years old. And definitely, when I was a teenager, I was all in on that. But I was not in on a girl who was gonna play head games with me. I hadn't been expecting it. It just came out of nowhere. I'm suiciding. What are you gonna do about it? I didn't understand it. I didn't understand what that was about. And I dumped her while she was still in the hospital. I think on her second or third day in the hospital, I dumped her. I went in the hospital and I told her I can't be with somebody that's gonna play mind games like that with me, and I got a lot of flack for that from my friends, even from my dad. Everybody saw me breaking up with her as heartless. Her brother and sister, her parents, my dad. My mom didn't care. But that's because moms don't want their boys to be with any girls anyway, especially like sexual girls. Yeah, I don't think my mom has ever really approved of any of my female friends or wives or anything. But everybody that would normally be very encouraging of me were upset with me and judged me as I don't know, just being a heartless asshole. How could I break up with her? Especially, she's showing that she needs something, hey? And looking back on it, I don't know, I definitely wouldn't make the same move today with my, where I'm at in my head as a, 50-some-year-old guy. But at that time, I was very sharp, hey? I was no drugs, no alcohols. I was training to be in special forces. I was martial arts, running, and very disciplined in different ways. And I wasn't gonna play that thing, and cut her out of my life just like that. It's late afternoon now. Just a gorgeous day out here at Spokane. Obviously, I was kind of expecting to run into goose goslings today, but it doesn't look like it yet. When I passed the beaver lodge, the couple who's nested there, not sitting their nest, like these guys, they're out eating. The gander's guarding his missus, and he'll bring them back. Those eggs are not going to get cool because it is warm out here. Probably close to 20 degrees Celsius. And along with that warmth, the snakes are leaving the dens. I've been looking at photos on Facebook that people have been posting, snake encounters on some of the coulee trails. I spend my afternoon doing snake fencing in Riverstone just in time, and hopefully I get some more orders for that because I did pre-purchase. Whoa, got a little gnat or something in my mouth. Pre-purchase some wire. Any case, continue with my story as we walk out here to the snake dens to take a look. After breaking it off with Ruthie, I kept myself a distance from churchy people and churches altogether for, I think, close to a year. And the only thing that brought me back into that was I was at Fort Dix, New Jersey, doing basic training for the U.S. Army. And as I was training, the only time that anybody ever got to, have really independent time away from the barracks was if they're going to their religious practice on the Sunday morning. You could go to a religious service once a week on the Sunday morning, and so just in order to get out of the barracks, I started going to that. I started going to the Catholic Mass on Sundays, and just got me out of the barracks. But I only did it for a couple of weeks. I mean, I had 10-12 weeks at Fort Dix, but I decided to stop going to the church thing because there was this girl this girl from Oregon. I met her in Portland when we were getting ready to ship out, we were both going to Fort Dix for our basic training, and they have like a kind of a recruiter station place, intake station by the airport there, and they put you in a hotel. So that we each had hotel rooms, and we were bumping into each other in the recruiting station and stuff, and kind of giving each other the eye. Knowing that we were going to ship out right away, we decided to have some fun, have a last blast there in Portland, and we had some romping sex in those hotel rooms, and then shipped to Fort Dix. And then once the Army gets to women, it uglifies them like right away, hey? Like they don't get to do nice things with their hair or makeup, and if they wear glasses, they gotta switch out and wear ugly Army glasses at least for the basic training. And but any case, I seen this girl, I don't even remember her name now, but I seen this girl at the church. She was going to the church, and she started trying to like connect with me there, and I seen her in her Army ugliness, and just didn't want to really have nothing to do with her anymore, and so I stopped going to church to avoid her at the base. So I went to church like 2 or 3 times just to get out of the barracks, but it became an issue. And then after that, again, stayed away from those kind of peoples and places as much as I could until it must have been about 2 years later, and I was in Fort Polk, Louisiana, where I did most of my military tour, working live missions, spying on the Third Shock Army of the Soviet Union in the Ukraine from a distance, signals intelligence. Any case, I was at Fort Polk, and one of the sergeants in my company decided that I needed religion. So he invited me to his church, and it was like a real Southern Black Baptist church that he invited me to. And it was all like singing, and people were, the Spirit was getting them or whatever. They were getting whatever it is, they were getting possessed by some good spirits or something, and they were all about love and showing each other, telling each other I love you, and calling each other brother and sister and all of this stuff. It was a merry time for a couple hours that morning. Lots of singing, lots of hugging, it was just fun stuff. But when it was over, we went out to lunch, and Sergeant asks me, so what'd you think? And I told him I thought that was really nice, lots of love, lots of hugging, lots of good vibes, lots of singing. It's a good time, but it's just, it's not for me. I don't believe in it. And he got mad. Hey, he just got mad. I was just being honest with him, just straight up, But he got mad, and that was it. Hey. I think that was my last experience of ever going to any kind of actual church session. So I've probably only been to less than a handful of those suckers in my whole life. Except for, of course, funerals and marriages, weddings and funerals. I've done plenty of those. And those always feel like, especially Blackfoot funerals, For traditional people, I always think it's really weird
Time,
when they get Jesus-y.
minutes, 31
Oh,
seconds.
we've done a kilometer.
Total distance 1.0 kilometers. Average pace.
Just passing under the high-level bridge now.
Seconds per kilometer. Split pace 14 minutes 30 seconds per kilometer.
And out in here is where the old 1940 World War II coal mine was. Not surprisingly, there's a lot of erosion in the ground here, deep fissures, and this becomes a kind of a snaky platform of the coulees. I'll go up here, and there's a bunch of holes along here where snakes live. I'm gonna take a peek real quick before I get back to the story, see if anybody's out or if they've just already vamoosed from the den. That's entirely possible. Oh, there's one of the holes. Anybody around? I'm not seeing nobody. Yeah, entirely possible. Oh, there's some garter snakes in this one. Oh, a rattlesnake too. Rattle and garter snakes in there. See them? This is a snake zone right here. If you're walking around out here, don't let your dog off leash. Don't let your kids run off the trail, you know. Every single one of our 4 snake species that we have in Lethbridge are occurring right here, right here. Bull snakes, rattlesnakes, both species of garter snake. I'm going to kind of poke around here and see if I happen to run into any bull snakes. This is the time when they first start like really getting out of the den and getting out on their own and stuff. This is the time where the garter snakes and the bull snakes will do their mating. And so at the garter snake dens, you'll see just balls of snakes. And around the bull snakes, you'll see the big male snakes wrestling. You know, I filmed some of that here a couple of times along this ridge in here. A bull snake wrestling session. All right. So, yeah, as you can see, you know, my whole life, I was not a formally religious person at all, and no belief in a God. And the first time anything really connected with me, well, there were different ideas that I got introduced to through martial arts, you know, Asian ideas that they seem more like scientific than spiritual, but they were associated with stuff like Taoism and Buddhism, Zen, and yeah, they were skirting on the religious, and I suppose if you went looking for it as religion, you could find it, but I was really mining that stuff for philosophy, you know. If you ever read Bruce Lee's books or something, that's what you're getting, right? Taoism and Zen condensed and modernized and non-religious, right? So I did get into some of those ideas, but I, you know, never at all ever wanted to get into that as formal religion, you know. The only time that I ever connected with anything systemic like that is when I came into the Blackfoot world, into my second life. And, you know, because I was not Christianized, I think I I like kind of understand and approach the Blackfoot spiritual practices a little differently than a lot of people, because a lot of people, even on the reserve, they're more Christian than anything else, even though they might be taking care of a bundle too. And sometimes they interpret that bundle all the way through, and even very I've known people who were taking care of bundles that were really high up in the food chain of Blackfoot spirituality, and they'd have them hanging on their wall right next to a picture of the whatever Christian saint or whatever that they were trying to emulate in their practice. And I got nothing against people experimenting with religions and stuff, obviously, but for me, I think I see things in the bundles differently because I've never had that God thing in my mind. And so, I see the Blackfoot practices as a way for human beings to systemically, as a group, engage with and celebrate and think about the other animals and plants who we coexist with. That's what it's, principally about, is living in this place with these others, coexisting. The beaver as a model, because the beaver, everything that it does with its life, nurtures even thousands of relationships with other plants and animals. Hey, beavers just nourish everybody else, and that's what we're supposed to be thinking about and trying to emulate. And so, when I approach an understanding of something in the Blackfoot world, it's through the eyes and mind of a naturalist, not through that of a religious person. Hey, and I'm not saying that I'm not spiritual, because you'll find in my memoirs as we go along, one of my biggest life steps was dream guided, and I still believe in that, what happened in that dream. Hey, I think I met the moon in person, and she told me some stuff. We'll get to that. So I don't think it's that I'm not a spiritual person, but it's the moon who I run into, not just a fairy or something. Hey, I'm sorry for those people who are religious who are watching this, because it's probably gonna get under your skin, some of the stuff that I say. But I've had that happen to me all my life, and my understanding of it, I'm not like a formal, like people call atheism a religion too, or something like this, and I don't have that. The thing that I believe in is the beaver bundle and a lot of the Blackfoot bundles, and I don't have to believe in them. I understand them, and it's a knowledge of the living beings that are in this place, and a celebration of our life with them, So you know, in my second life, you know, my first life, I had so much conflict with religion and stuff. In my second life, I actually became a religious leader for a period. But it was in the Blackfoot system. And I didn't understand it as a, you know, God-oriented, a God-focused system, you know. To me, it's this living world, which some people will say that's God. But then just say the living world, fucks. You know? It either is a God or it's not, you know? So, when I was in the military, I forgot to tell this little sub-story, but we'll hear it probably again later when I get into my military stories. But it's relevant here. When I was in the military, I had to have dog tags, hey? And your dog tags were supposed to say, you know, your name and your serial number and your MOS, and I think they had the MOS on there. And your religion. And so I didn't know what the fuck to put for religion for myself when I went in. So what I told them was I'm a humanist atheist. And that's what they had on my tag. And you'll find in my memoirs later, my experience in the military was not good. Like, that's where I had my identity crisis. Because I found out that I'd been fucking brainwashed my whole life with lies. And that everything that I thought I was going to be doing in my adult life, my whole career orientation was out the window. Because they misrepresented themselves. So I was trying hard to get out of the military for the last couple of years that I was in. And at one point we had this huge inspection at Fort Polk in Louisiana. This like 4-star general or 5-star general coming through or something. It was a big deal. And so everybody was preparing for like a week. You know, you go through the barracks, and on the time off, everybody's shining their stuff and fucking washing their clothes and ironing everything just perfect and all of this. And what was Ryan doing? None of that stuff. None of that stuff. Bring on the general. And like, I'm gonna put in a week's worth of what you would get if you happen to be the guy in your platoon who got the least demerits or whatever, you know, the least negative comments during the inspection. If you happen to be that guy, you got the least negative comments in your platoon, you would get a day off, a weekday off, while everybody else had to go to work. And I wasn't about to work for a week to get one day off. That seemed retarded to me. So I didn't do any prep. Didn't shine my boots, my buckles, didn't press anything, nada. I went to the inspection, just looking the way I normally do for work, which was, you know, basic presentable, like nothing that if I'm on site on work looking like that I'm going to get flagged. But it was not inspection ready by any standards at all. And when the general came to look at me and inspect me, there were so many things to even say. He didn't even bother. Hey, he didn't even start talking. He said, "Where's your dog tags?" And I pulled out my dog tags, and he read that. He says, "Humanist atheist." And then he said, "Well, that figures." And he moved on. So I got no demerits in the inspection, and I got the day off. And nobody in my platoon was very happy about that. But anyway, now going into my third life, I've withdrawn again from religion as a group practice. Of course, separating from Mahoney, she has the beaver bundle. But I've been invited to ceremony and stuff, pretty much every summer. And I almost don't ever go. I go to the Akokats and the Sundance. But I haven't been to bundle openings for a while. I helped build a new beaver bundle a few years back. Just chipped in some of the parts, but yeah, I haven't been doing the formal practice at all. Like, people have been asking me for songs and stuff, people that are running beaver bundles and or learning them, and I've always been happy to share those, but yeah, I've been just kind of keeping my distance from it. And why? I think again it's because it became like too churchy-ish for me, and it's like the practice, how people are practicing, goes against my understanding of what it's about. Like in the mainstream and in the Christianized church and stuff, all of the holy days and celebrations are about people. They're about birth dates and death dates and war dates and what have you. But they're about humans. Everything in the Blackfoot world is about what's going on in nature. And you're supposed to do the ceremony timed with what's going on in the nature. You're not supposed to do it on, we're open on our bundle on April 22nd or whatever. And are you going to go open yours on April 29th, and then you come to ours, we'll go to yours, and people are just stacking their ceremonies on the weekends and going to ceremonies every weekend, like is church again. When in reality, when you hear the thunder, you're supposed to open the thunder bundle. When the eggs come, you're supposed to open the beaver bundle. And it's not supposed to keep going on and on every weekend. It's an environmental response. It's not church. But what do I know? So I've pulled back a little bit from that, and I don't know if there'll be a time when I roll back into it. I'm not totally adverse to that, but I don't necessarily have the motivation that I once did to be involved at that level. I still do my daily smudging at home. I participate all the time in Atsimoyitskan and Atsimskasen, which is reciprocating and through words and actions for what I receive from the other life in the world, but it's, yeah, I think for now, I'm just going to stick to my own personal practices, but they've been hugely augmented by all of my transfers, from the beaver bundle and other things. So that's kind of where my history of experiences with that stuff, with formal religion. And I think, I will definitely some of that history, and especially just not being inundated with certain ideas has put me into a different kind of category of like ethical practice and such. Like I don't look at animals as lower than us. I look at them as higher. I don't look at sexuality as anything bad, and I don't think in traditional Blackfoot it was looked like that either, because the elders used to tell me, it's goita peace, and it's the gift of life that you're involved in with that act. It's all good. you know. But yeah, I've got different guiding principles, I guess. But you know, I think what I am missing though, and it doesn't have to come from religion. In fact, I don't think it should come from religion. I think it's from family. And what I'm missing is, what do you call it? Attachment. Strong attachments within relationships. Awakasi. Awatoi. That's what the white tail. Awatoi. This is part of what the moon told me in my dream. I throw people away, and some of these people are spirits who I'm supposed to be going through this life with and growing with, but I just get my initial benefits from the relationship and sometimes throw people away. Hey, so this is the one, like, if there's something I think wrong with my spirit that I need to work on, it's long been this. And I think that detachment comes from some of how I was raised, hey? Because we moved away. I didn't grow up with extended family. We moved away from our family. We were just a very close, little tight-knit mom, dad, 2 brothers. And we didn't have to make a lot of room for a lot of other people in our lives. My mom was really good at grooming and maintaining relationships. Not my dad. Although we will hear about some of the relationships he did have. Some of the crazy guys that he introduced me to in life. But yeah, if there's anything where I'm lacking, I don't think it's the lack of formal religion or belief in God or something like that, but it is, I have relational deficits, okay? The way that I am with people. Very few people have been able to really understand me in life. I've had very few friends, like really close friends. I have very, very few today. Very few. And the amount of time that I spend with male friends now and in the past has just been so small. I don't know. Just kind of feel like I kind of feel like it's natural, like the mature stag hangs out alone. He doesn't hang out with a group. He's his own man, but he might have a harem of chicks, of lady friends. Anyway, I guess I'm going to end it here. I've rambled long enough about this and that, but now you see where some of my, philosophical, ethical, moral thinking and not thinking comes from.